I think we can all agree that there are significant differences between men and women. There are certainly things we have in common, but there are also differences. And we can start looking at that often in girls and boys. And it looks like social media in particular may be worse for girls than it is for boys. Joining us on the phone to talk about it, our good friend and clinical forensic psychologist, Dr. John Huber. Doc, how are you?
Great, Dana. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I am a little bit troubled by this idea that social media in general, and I don't know if people realize this, has a strong tie to depression.
Definitely. In fact, there's causal research out there that shows that it actually causes depression. And when we watch people's behavior, 2 hours online doing social media, and your body starts showing signs of depression, the way you sit, posture, your withdrawal from your home environment, and things like that. It's crazy.
Well, let me ask you something, because I want to break this down a little bit before we get to the specific differences here on how this affects girls more than boys. But, is that true for all online interactivity, or is it just social media? Like, in other words, is that the same for gaming? Is it the same for just general purpose internet surfing?
Well, they pretty much looked at general purpose internet surfing, gaming, and social media all as one kind of lump sum thing.
Okay.
They left out things like some of these games where you get on and you can play with like your friends from school and you can all talk to each other while the game's going on and things like that. In fact, that can actually be positive for social engagement because you're actually playing and talking with
because you're actually
friends
speaking, right?
Yeah,
You're actually
it's
on
almost
the
like
headset.
playing cards with somebody. You're playing a game, but y'all are talking about everything else.
Yep.
And so that can be beneficial. And they're not talking about goal-directed behavior in front of a screen, like working on a report, putting together a program, those types of things.
Okay.
It's these wasting time activities that just kind of burn up time, and all of a sudden your day's gone.
Oh.
And that's what's killing us. And now the research is showing that women, girls in particular, are much more likely to suffer from these than boys. And I question how accurate that is, because I know men in general, boys are taught not to complain about mental health issues at all. And we know for a fact that women report 2 times as much depression, but when we actually do the assessments, it's pretty much equal distribution of depression across men and women. But when you ask men, oh, no, I'm not. And women are more likely to say they are when they are. So
okay, so you're saying
social pressure.
All right, so you're saying the study might not be fully accurate because it looks like, as we know, women are just reporting it more. It may not actually be that much worse for girls than boys.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And especially for kids, adolescents who, boys are being told they have to be tough and all this kind of stuff that they would not like to be seen as weak, especially in a school environment. You know how horrible that can be if you're all of a sudden feel like you're going to be bullied and stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's talk about it from the female perspective a little bit, because it is our Women on Wednesday segment.
Definitely.
Even though you are, a dude.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Dude.
Dr. Dude.
There you go. That's Dr. Dude to you. But look, I mean, I know that women also tend to be, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, because this is just, my observation as a mom and as a girl, / woman myself. But, women do seem to be very focused on appearance and, this whole Instagram era that we're in with, trying to look like a perfect, Kardashian style image of what a girl's supposed to look like. And do you think that is part of what's hurting girls via social media?
Well, and it's much. I mean, we used to talk about with like the supermodels and stuff like that, and Twiggy and all this, and setting this role model. But now, it's not just coming out in the magazine every month or maybe on TV tonight. It's all day long. Every 5-10 minutes, there's a new picture up there of somebody doing exactly that, setting these standards that are way too extreme for real life. And our kids are not obviously developed enough to be able to handle that. And it would make more sense. And I when a push comes to shove, I think the data is correct. I don't think it's as extreme as they're making it out, but I do believe women are affected more by that social media than men are, as far as depression is concerned, for sure.
Dr. John Huber on the phone with us right now. We're discussing the effects of social media and mental health on girls and boys, but in particular, why it may be worse for girls. So aside from, that stuff, John, that I just, specified, this image-based stuff, are there other reasons that you think it is impacting girls more heavily?
Well, I think part of it, too, is girls are much more verbal and verbally communicating. They express their feelings a lot more. They're trained to express their feelings a lot more from birth. I mean, we give guys trucks and balls, and we give girls dolls, and before the girls can even talk, they're doing nonverbal communication between the dolls.
Right.
And they're practicing this, and boys are going around pushing the trucks, and then, that's why a couple's coming in. I go, well, what did he say? He goes, he grunted. And I'm like, well, that's what he knows how to do.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the verbal issue, and then we throw them in front of that keyboard, and all of a sudden they're removed from their cohorts. They're not seeing the facial expressions, and they're trying to do as best they can, but they've been trained to use all those cues, and they're not present. And I think it causes kind of a distortion of effect on what they are reading in the text. And I think that's compounding the issue. Whereas guys, the reality of it is we don't learn to communicate very well at an early age. It's oftentimes later in life. And so they're not missing that. That's like, okay, we grunt at each other all day. So they put that 1-2-word answer out there. I'm not going to interpret it anyway. But the girls are trying to figure out what's going on.
Right. I mean, that is a fascinating point. I think I definitely witnessed that when I, raising my own daughter, who would come home and tell me a story about what so-and-so said to her. And after a few years, I got savvy and I started saying, well, wait a minute. Did she or he say that in person, or was it a text message, or what, or an email? And she said, oh, it was a text, or it was, a Snapchat or whatever. And then I would say, well, you don't really know then that's what they meant, because you're attaching emotion to that may not have been there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're so right about that. I think you're, the whole idea of these verbal skills. I mean, certainly for women, we're used to the grunting men, and we use their facial expressions and their body language to figure out what they really mean. And without those present, we start assuming, right?
Exactly. And that's where, all the depression is, oh, well, you must be mad at me. Or, oh, so really they're telling me I shouldn't do this. Why don't they just come out and say it? Well, your imagination runs wild, and you put all these things, and you can't read other people's minds. That was mine and my wife's biggest problem. She thought I knew what she meant when she was communicating, but I was learning how to communicate. And I finally said, I can't read your mind. You have to tell me. And to this day, she doesn't give me hints for presents for her birthday. She just tells me what she wants, and then she gets it. Hints don't work for me.
Listen, before I let you go, Dr. Huber, any suggestions, as we're raising girls, for parents raising girls to try to protect them from this a little bit?
Well, one of the things I have my patients' parents do is get as involved with the kid as possible, volunteer at school, be around, and our kids' friends know who we are. We walk in, it's like, hey Doc, and hey Mrs. Huber, and like that, and I don't even remember who the kids are, but they know us because they see us. We're so involved. That's the first thing. The second thing is you need to know what they're doing online. Now, you don't have to go and become some kind of technology expert. There are really simple apps. I'm not advocating any particular one that you can get that uses the technology that the kids are using, that monitors their behaviors online, and it's like less than $2 a month for these. I mean, it's ridiculously cheap, and it gives you so much protection. They tell you if your kids are on dangerous apps or on dangerous websites, but they also monitor things like the language they're using when they're communicating. And people who talk like this oftentimes are becoming depressed. You need to go talk with your kid about that.
That's awesome.
And you get these little things. And so go online. Typically what I find is the ones with the worst ratings are really the best ones for parents, because the kids are going on and rating them as horrible.
That's amazing. Smart kids.
So, exactly. So you got to look at the reports and the reviews, because as you read them, something usually gives it away that, this kid's being monitored and they don't like it.
That's hilarious. I love it. Dr. Huber, always great to get your perspective. We got to do the best we can by our kids. We will post a link to all things Dr. John Huber on our show notes page at danabarrett.com.